1990. A mobile phone weighed a kilogram and cost more than a month's salary. 3 companies controlled this world. This is how every single one of them lost it. (1997). Before Nokia made phones, it made rubber boots and toilet paper. It was a dying Finnish conglomerate, desperately searching for a future. The future it chose was a single bet: digital. While Motorola spent billions building analog networks across America, Nokia quietly standardized on GSM, the European digital standard: smaller batteries, cleaner calls, phones light enough to fit in a shirt pocket. In 1997, that bet paid off completely. Nokia shipped 37 million phones. Motorola shipped 32 million. The company that had invented mobile communication had been beaten by a rubber boot maker. Nokia was just getting started. Within a decade, it would control 40% of every phone sold on Earth. At its peak, Nokia shipped 468 million phones in a single year. No consumer technology company in history had ever achieved dominance at this scale. The year 2000. Nokia had just sold 126 million phones. 1 in 4 mobile phones on Earth was a Nokia. The company seemed untouchable. It had no idea what was about to happen. January 9th, 2007. Steve Jobs walked onto a stage in San Francisco and announced 3 things: an iPod, a phone, an internet communicator. Then he paused and said they were all the same device. Nokia's engineers had already built prototype touchscreen phones years earlier. They were cancelled. The company believed people needed physical keyboards. They were wrong. Nokia sold 435 million phones that year. Apple sold 1.4 million. The numbers looked laughable. They were not. The iPhone was not a better phone. It was a computer that happened to make calls. It ran real applications. It browsed the real internet. It redefined what the word phone meant. Nokia's CEO called it inferior. He was right about the hardware. He was catastrophically wrong about everything else. Within 5 years, Nokia had collapsed from 468 million phones to almost none. Destroyed by 1.4 million units in year 1. In 2012, Nokia was finished. 4 years earlier, it had sold 468 million phones and owned 40% of Earth's mobile market. Now it sold barely 70 million smartphones and was hemorrhaging billions every quarter. The collapse was total. Nokia's operating system was too slow, too closed, too impossible to build apps for. Android had won the world, and Samsung had mastered Android faster and better than anyone. 384 million Samsung phones shipped that year. Apple, 135 million. But the real story was happening below the top 2. 4 brands from China, Huawei, Xiaomi, Oppo, and Vivo had just entered the top 15. They were small, they were fast, they were cheap. And they were about to do to Samsung exactly what Samsung had done to Nokia. If this channel is new to you, take 1 second and subscribe. We cover exactly these kinds of stories every week. 2014. The smartphone had conquered the world, and 4 brands from China, Xiaomi, Huawei, Oppo, and Vivo, were about to conquer the smartphone. (2019). Huawei had achieved something Samsung feared deeply: 240 million phones in a single year, the highest any Chinese brand had ever reached. Samsung held on at 295 million, but the gap had nearly halved in just 3 years. Analysts were predicting Huawei would be global #1 by 2021. Then, on May 16, 2019, the United States placed Huawei on the Entity List, a trade blacklist. Overnight, Huawei lost access to Google's Play Store. American chip suppliers cut them off completely. Within 6 months, every Western carrier had dropped Huawei from their shelves. Within 2 years, Huawei had collapsed from 240 million phones to 35 million. A company built over 30 years, dismantled in 24 months by a single executive order. No government action had ever destroyed a consumer technology company this fast, at this scale, so completely. (2023). For the first time in the entire history of the smartphone era, Apple sold more phones than Samsung in a full calendar year. 234 million iPhones, 226 million Samsung phones. Apple had been in second place for 11 years, since Samsung took the crown from Nokia in 2012. The reason Apple finally won was not that Apple surged, it barely moved. The reason was Samsung losing. Samsung was being crushed from below by Transsion in Africa, by Xiaomi across Asia, by Oppo and Vivo in China. Every time Samsung defended the mid-range, it lost margin. Every time it moved upmarket, Apple was already there. And while Chinese brands dominated global volume, Apple captured over 80% of global smartphone profits. The most valuable position in the industry, selling fewer phones for 10 times the margin.